just before we get started, I guess we've all been sitting for a little while, and I'm an OT, so I do love movement breaks, so I'm going to invite everybody to join me in a movement break. If everyone, I know space might be a bit tight, but if you could try and stretch out your arms as far as you can, as wide as you can, if you can flex your toes, flex your feet, and really what I want you to do is to really feel the tension and the stretch in your arms, okay? Okay, have a little wiggle in your seat. And now could you please stamp your feet? So stamp. Slowly, but hard. Stamp hard. And quicker. Quicker. And start to slow down again. And lighten up. Okay. I feel a bit more grounded after that, so I hope you guys feel a little bit more too. So I'll explain movement breaks as I move on through the slide, but I suppose just to introduce myself first. I'm the senior occupational therapist here with the adolescent team. I suppose I've taken a bit of a winding path to get here. I initially studied psychology in Belfast, then I went to Limerick to do my master's in OT. Then I ended up marrying a Dub for some reason, and so I ended up in Dublin. And so over the last 10 years, I've had the opportunity to work in a wide range of areas, intellectual disability, adult mental health, and adolescent mental health. And throughout the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to work with people with ADHD, and it is absolutely an aspect of my work that I really enjoy. So what I want to do this evening is just talk a little bit about the role that OT can play when working with somebody with ADHD, but to really focus on practical strategies and tips that hopefully you might find useful and be able to take home and try. Is this the thing? Yeah. So what is OT? Sometimes people don't have a good sense of what OT is, and essentially it's about helping people to do the everyday things that they need to do. So it's about enabling people to participate in everyday activities. And we work with people to enhance their ability to engage or to modify the task or the environment in which they need to engage. When we think about OT specifically with ADHD, we tend to target specific skill sets such as sustaining attention, sensory modulation, which is around regulating ourselves in response to sensory input, and executive functioning, which is about how we organise ourselves to be able to engage in tasks. So I'm going to focus specifically on sensory modulation and executive functioning this evening. So first of all, sensory modulation. That really is about how our brains are constantly processing the sensory information we're receiving from the external world and also internally. And it's about how we organise that information so we can respond and engage in activities in everyday life. Every single person has a unique sensory modulation pattern, and this pattern does have an impact on how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. It is true that sensory processing problems are more common for children with ADHD than those without. And what we can see there is a person might become more overwhelmed or disorganised in response to either too little or too much sensory stimulation. So sensory stimulation is the key to self-regulation. So what I mean by self-regulation is your ability to be able to identify, sorry, I've losing my train of thought, to be able to identify your level of alertness and to be able to respond to get yourself into what we call the just right zone. So there's 3 different levels of response to sensory stimulation. There's the under-responsive level, and so that is where a person might be unaware of or slow to respond to sensory stimulation. An example might be in a typical classroom setting. One young person might be perfectly capable of attending and concentrating in a quiet, still environment, but somebody with ADHD might become bored or inattentive much more easily, and they might need more sensory stimulation in order to feel alert, grounded, and be able to pay attention. Then we have, I suppose, the opposite response really, which is over-responsive, and that is where a person can tend to feel overwhelmed or overloaded by sensory stimulation. So an extreme example of that might be if somebody has a tactile sensitivity or defensiveness, they might experience certain touch as being painful, like hair brushing or getting your hair cut or getting your nails cut, that other people typically wouldn't find painful. And then we have the just right zone, which is where a person will feel grounded and feel calm and able to engage. And Aileen referenced the alert program earlier, and that would very much run along the sensory modulation lines. It's really important to be aware that nobody goes through all day, every day in the just right zone. We all fluctuate in and out. But typically as adults, we're able to make decisions, usually subconscious, that will regulate ourselves and get us into the just right zone when we need to be. So maybe there might be people here tonight who, without realising it, maybe you might be wiggling a bit in your chair or jiggling a foot or taking a drink, something that your sensory modulation needs that gets you to a place where you're able to listen and to attend tonight. So this is an area that people with ADHD can struggle with. They can struggle with that ability to be aware of where they're at and what they need to do for themselves to self-regulate and to get into that just right zone. So this, I guess, is a big area where OT would come in. What we can do is, using specialist assessments, we try and establish a person's unique sensory profile pattern. And then using that information, we would build sensory strategies into a person's daily routine so they're better able to regulate and engage. So with that in mind, I'm just going to talk a little bit about some strategies that can be useful to focus attention and concentration. And because everybody is unique and everybody is different, not everyone will have the exact same response, but generally these are some strategies that have worked with people with ADHD when they need to be able to attend and to concentrate. So the first is dynamic sitting, and that's about active sitting on an unstable surface. So sitting on something like a yoga ball or a move and sit cushion, which I have over here, and then basically using that movement to regulate. So one person might bounce, somebody else might rock gently, and it's totally up to you as to what you feel works best for you. Just as an example, I'm just going to pass these around because with these things, it's much better to try them than just to talk about them. So if someone could grab those, that'd be great. So pass them around, have a sit, have a wiggle, see what you think. That round one I hate, I can't cope with it, it's far too much for me, but the wedge one I actually quite like. So do sit in it if you can, and pass it down. So if you find yourself in the under-responsive zone where maybe you're feeling quite sluggish and you're not quite able to get yourself to a place where you're able to concentrate, anything citrus or sour tasting is quite alerting and quite useful. So when I do groups here with the young people, sometimes shockingly their concentration will start to waver. So I can whip out my bowl of lemon slices and I'll invite them or make them either, sometimes maybe it's a bit more coercive than inviting, either just to smell the lemon or to lick it or to actually bite into it. It's quite a fun thing to do. People can tend to hate it. I can't bite into it myself, but everybody afterwards will say afterwards they feel much more alert, much more grounded and much more able to attend. Fidgets. So we all have a huge amount of touch receptors in our hands. And it has been shown that if you're able to engage your hands when you need to concentrate, it does help improve your focus and attention. So again, whatever fidget will be totally unique to each person as to what works for you. I have my box of tricks here. So you want to pass that round? Yeah, thank you. So I have some bubble wrap there, I have some material that people like to pull through their hands, different types of stress balls. So really, rather than just kind of maybe going and ordering some stuff on the internet, try and just have a go, have a feel with what might be helpful for you. So another thing, if you need to sit down and do a piece of work, so if you need to concentrate for a piece of time, these are some useful sensory strategies. Using Play-Doh or blue tack, there's quite nice resistance, particularly from blue tack, so just getting that and pulling it. Chewing, believe it or not, sets off the proprioceptive system and is quite useful. So maybe chewing gum or something hard and crunchy, trying to stay away from sweets obviously, but like a crunchy apple. And then movement breaks. So that's why I made you all move before I started talking. It's really important to try and get a movement break in before you sit down to do some work and then to schedule it throughout your work period. So that could be anything. That could be using a skipping rope, jumping on a trampoline, could be doing a headstand against a wall, it could be doing jumping jacks, whatever works for you. Another useful thing can be if you do have quite an amount to do, say if somebody's got a lot of homework or assignments to do, try to break it down into smaller tasks, and then after each step, stretch. Just get up and move. So, movement breaks, let's try a couple of more. Might as well just talk about them. So, if you've got space, put your hands on the side of your chair. If you don't have space, then maybe just the front of your chair. And what I need you to do is to keep your feet flat on the floor and just push down so you're lifting your bum up off the chair and you're holding your weight with your arms. Kind of go. You're looking to go like this, basically. So you're holding up your weight in your arms. I'll see if you don't do it, Mum. So just do 2 or 3 now for even 5 seconds. So 5 seconds is good, but you're really looking for a good 10 seconds. And what you're looking to do is to feel that in your arms. So that's one. Chair presses, hand presses. So if you can place your palms together and push, and you can really push as hard as you can with this one. So what you're looking with this one is to feel that resistance coming all the way down your shoulders and into your arms. So pushing and again holding for a good 10 seconds. If you can. So I won't make you do that 5 times. And head presses. So with this one you need to make sure you're sitting up straight neck, straight back. So linking your fingers and just pulling down. And just feeling that stretch, feeling that push down through your neck and your spine. And try and breathe when you're doing it as well. So they're just a couple examples of movement breaks that is really good to build into your school day, your study, your work day, just to try and get yourself to be able to concentrate and attend. So that's sensory modulation piece. I mentioned also executive functioning, and that's where we need to be able to organise ourselves to be able to engage in tasks. So that's about organising tasks, being able to initiate and transition between tasks, problem solving and time management. So really important here is actual planning your time. So to be successful, you need to spend at least 10 minutes every day planning the next day. It's good to do it at night time and plan the next day, and a half hour at the start of every week. This is really good for everybody, regardless if there's somebody with ADHD in the family. I have 2 toddler whirlwinds at home, and if I don't have a solid plan with my husband in the morning, who's feeding that one, who's dressing that one, who's doing the crash run, things can descend into chaos fairly quickly. So to do your weekly plan, can be a great idea to get a weekly planner. If you can get quite a large whiteboard and put it up somewhere visible, preferably the kitchen, somewhere where people will see. If you can't get one that already has the days of the week on it, that's fine. Just get a permanent marker and draw out your days of the week and your lines yourself. Then you'll need some dry white markers, at least 4 different colours, and then you colour code. So you give each type of task a colour. So for example, red for schoolwork or homework, blue for relaxation or stress busting strategies, and purple for reminders. They're just examples, but whatever works for you. And then another useful tool is the brain dump sheet, which I have some copies of here if anybody wants them afterwards. So the brain dump sheet is it's a proven method that helps make clear action plans. So it's really good to use a laminated list for this one. And what you want to do during your 10 minutes of planning your day, if you can write down absolutely everything that's on your mind that you want to do, that you need to do. So when you're getting it down, if you can get it down starting with a verb, and nothing can be too big or too small for this. So if you run out of shampoo, instead of just writing shampoo, write buy shampoo. So you're starting with a verb. Apply for college, text John, whatever it is that just happens to be in your head at that time. When you have them down, then you're going to prioritise. So if you can write a number 1 beside the things that you need to do immediately, so either today or tomorrow, and a number 2 beside the things that need to be done this week, and then number 3 beside things that can wait sometime in the future. So then what you need to do is, using your colour-coded markers, write up everything that you prioritise as a 1 and a 2, and put them up on your weekly planner where you're going to see them and plan when you're going to actually do them. You can leave the number 3s till next week's planner, even further later into that. I think, Aileen, you mentioned some of these tools already that are also quite useful organisational tools. Timers are really useful from a visual perspective for a person to be able to say, okay, I'm going to spend 20 minutes doing this particular task, and being able to check in and see how long have I got, how long is left. Some people love to be able to hear a timer as well, the ticking. Personally, that would drive me absolutely crazy, but it does work for some people. It's a really good way for people to be able to build their internal concept of the passage of time. Checklists. Laminated sheets are really useful for checklists, and you can write a checklist for absolutely anything. You could do a checklist for a morning routine. So 7:45, wake up, 8 o'clock, eat, 8:15, wash, 8:30, leave the house. You can have checklists for your school bags, for what you need to be in your bag that day, so you can just check. PE gear, absolutely anything at all. And phones were mentioned already, of course. We all tend to have our phones on us all of the time. So just getting into the habit of actively using your phone to set reminders, to set alarm clocks, to help you plan and organise your tasks. I want to just talk about environment briefly. I suppose this is quite school study focused, but the general principles can be applied to anybody who needs to for a work situation. So it's really important to have a designated spot at home where all schoolwork is done. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a bedroom, but it does need to be somewhere where there's minimal distractions. Space is really important, so that everything has its own place and it goes back to that place once you're finished. Make sure there's at least one shelf and one drawer for your personal school stuff. Somewhere like a designated spot where your school bag lives once you go home. A lot of desks can be a bit tight, a bit small for young people who need to do work, so try and have like a nice big spacious desk or table so there's plenty of space for books, for folders, for dictionaries, whatever the young person needs. And it's also good to keep that spot well stocked with supplies, so calculators, hole punches, pens, whatever might be needed. And lighting is a good consideration as well. So you're going to need a main source for the room and a desk lamp as well. So I just want to finish up it is really important, obviously, that we identify some of the challenges that crop up for people with ADHD, but I think it's also important that we do reflect on the strengths that people with ADHD do have. When I asked around my colleagues when I was doing this part, pretty much everybody without exception, when I asked them what would you say are the strengths of somebody with ADHD, they all said, oh, they're such fun people, they're magnetic, attractive personalities, everybody wants to be their friend. And creative as well was the other one that came up. Zoe Deschanel has talked about her ADHD, and I think she's a lovely embodiment of those characteristics. High energy, which has been mentioned. Michael Phelps, I think he's won something ridiculous, like 22 gold medals so far. Him and his mother have talked in interviews about his ADHD and about how he used his high levels of energy. He channeled them into his swimming practice, and he really has become absolute top of his game. And good old Richard Branson. Richard has ADHD as well. He started his first magazine when he was 16. He had nothing, he had no money, so his first office was a public telephone box, which he gave the number out and pretended it was an office, and he just hung around the phone box waiting for it to ring. So just that idea of being, just coming up with creative ideas, thinking outside the box, and then being able to initiate those ideas and act on them. So obviously he owns an island now, so he's not working from a phone box anymore. So I just think it's really important that while we do identify challenges that people face, we also do reflect on the strengths that people have, and we harness those strengths and we use them so that people are able to achieve their full potential. Thank you.